Welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. And now, let's get sketchy.
Hello there, everyone. Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and welcome to Gettin Sketchy Live, the greatest live broadcast in all of YouTube. Only if I push the right buttons, it is. I hope everybody's doing great tonight. Last week we had to take a break because Ashley was sick, but he's joining us tonight, and I think he's feeling a lot better. Ashley, how are you feeling over there?
I'm feeling great, Matt. You know, when you've been sick for a while and you start to feel better, you just get this wonderful feeling of joy when you wake up in the morning and you can breathe again. So I was really sick last week. I hated not to be here. I like to try to push through, but it wasn't just me, it was my whole family. So we've recovered, and hopefully we'll stay that way until our immune system kicks off again. But we got a lot of white blood cells, been developing them for the last week. So I think we should be good for the rest of the season, which is 3 more weeks, I think, including this week. That's
right. And boy, I wish I could wake up with that joy that you're talking about. And I'm not feeling too bad tonight. And I'd love to have that joy. Anyway, I hope you guys are feeling joyful tonight as I'm doing my last image of the season. And you'll notice that I said image because we're going to do a little drawing, but we're going to do painting. We're going to do watercolor painting, and we're doing it because you want to see it.
That's right.
I don't think 45 minutes is enough time to do a watercolor painting, but we're going to do what we can. So
our memory's not that short. We remember you did a wonderful watercolor painting as your last image for the previous season. Is that right?
Yes.
There's a little ink in there.
There was ink.
It was heavy on water.
That was line and wash. And if you'll remember, I only used really 2 or 3 colors.
That's true.
So tonight I'm using more than 2 or 3 colors. Different. And there is no ink involved at all. So this is all watercolor. And like normal, I'm pretty nervous about this. I did a little practice beforehand, but I'm still pretty nervous. So we'll see what happens tonight. But I am doing this for you. 3 weeks ago, I guess it was 3 weeks ago, or it was 2 weeks ago. I told you that I was going to be doing something, but I didn't tell you what it was going to be. Well, that's the surprise. We're going to be working with watercolor.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to be working from a photo reference, and if you want to have that photo reference to follow alongside of me, I'll have it up on the screen. But if you want to have your own version, you can go to the YouTube channel. So you might be watching this video, but not be on the YouTube channel. To go to the channel, click on the little icon of my face in the lower left-hand corner, and then while you're there, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And YouTube has changed things. It used to be the community tab. Now it's called posts. I don't know if they're going to change that or not. That's P-O-S-T-S. You can click on the posts tab, and there you'll find the photo reference with a link back to this video, so you can pick back up if you want to go check that out. Also, if you're new to the channel, or if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're getting closer. We're inching our way closer to 1 million subscribers, and I would love to get to 1 million subscribers, and most of you who watch this video are not subscribers. So if you're unsure if you're a subscriber or not, go ahead and subscribe. And of course, if you like this video, make sure you like it. And if you're watching the recorded version, you can leave a comment in the comment section below. Now, if you're watching this live, like what is happening right now, there's a chat box. You can, of course, post comments and questions. If you do have a comment or question that's specifically directed at Ashley or I, if you'll put that in all capital letters, but better yet, if you use the super chat function, that will get your comment or question prominently displayed, and will also help our channel out. So we'd really appreciate it if you did that.
Matt, it looks like Laura Patton subscribed, so that's one more closer.
All right. Thanks, Laura.
1 million. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much. And of course, you can take your drawing and painting skills to the next level. What we do here on Gettin Sketchy is quick and sketchy. But if you want to create more finished pieces of artwork, you need to check out the membership program over at thevirtualinstructor.com. We've got a ton of courses. We've got a ton of classes. We do weekly live lessons that are streamed for members. After we're done here with Gettin Sketchy, we'll be continuing with the oil painting that Ashley is leading us through. All of that is available to you as a member. We also do weekly critiques as part of the Members Minute. And there's also a year-long curriculum for visual arts teachers that includes everything you need to teach, all the resources you need to teach. Membership is free for a week, so you have a free trial period to see if the program's right for you. And then beyond that, we also offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, and I'm pretty sure we are the least expensive program on the internet with probably the most content. So I would strongly suggest you check it out. You can scan the QR code on your screen, or you can look for the link in the description below if you want to check out the membership program. And you can also put yourself on our mailing list, where I will send you 3 free course videos and ebooks, and also a bunch of other free stuff too, directly to your email box. There's a link in the description below for that as well. All right, Ashley, do you have anything to say before
I just noticed that Jan has shared a super chat.
All right, Jan, thank you so much.
He's excited. He says, so happy to see a watercolor cat. I'm sorry, watercolor paint.
Watercolor cat painted in watercolor.
Painted in watercolor, I believe. Can't wait.
Yes.
And you don't have to wait, Jan. It's going to happen right now.
Well, thank you so much, Jan, for supporting the channel and for your super chat there. You know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and switch over, and we'll look at the materials and get into this one.
All right.
Well, that's the wrong video. Look at that. Look at me over there. I'm all sideways. I'm falling.
Matt's sideways.
That's the right camera.
It didn't take long to push the wrong button.
Well, that wasn't. No, honestly, that wasn't totally. That was my fault. But that really wasn't. That's an excusable mistake, because I have a camera set up for the palette here, and obviously I have other cameras in here too, and just had the wrong camera associated with that, because I was talking. We haven't done anything like this, we haven't had a setup like this.
That's right.
And the timer's going. My goodness,
there's a lot happening.
A week. We take a week off, and all the world falls apart here. Anyway. There's a look at the photo reference. There you can see. And this is my watercolor palette that I've got set up here. I am using Winsor & Newton professional watercolors for this. And I have them arranged in my palette over here in the same order that they are in my set here. And it's basically the color spectrum. I'll do my best to call out the colors that I'm going to be using tonight, but I will be using this brand of watercolor. You can use any type of watercolor that you wish, of course. And I'm working on Stonehenge cold press watercolor paper, and this is it's 140-pound paper, but it's on it's a glued pad. So all these pieces of the watercolor paper are glued together with adhesive around the edges. A lot of times it's commonly referred to as a watercolor block. So what it does is it keeps your watercolor painting nice and taut while you're working on it. A lot of times the paper will buckle, and there's going to be some buckling that happens here, even on a stretched piece of watercolor paper. And when your painting is dry, you can cut it off, and it doesn't buckle quite as bad. So I'm going to be using that Stonehenge cold press watercolor paper. I'm going to be sketching things out with a graphite pencil. I think there's 2B graphite in here, but on the watercolor paper, it just doesn't show up quite as dark, so it's still going to be pretty light. And I have an assortment of brushes here. All of them are round brushes. I have a number 6 Grumbacher Golden Edge brush here, a number 4 Grumbacher Golden Edge brush, and then a couple of cheap brushes here from the art store. It looks like I picked up a couple of small ones. I'll be using this for detail work if we get to detail work, but we're going to be putting down some paint in a really fast fashion, hopefully. All right.
Matt, did you tell us how large your
paper is?
Yeah, your paper.
I did not. The paper is 6 inches by 8 inches.
Very good.
So this is proportional to the photo reference. It's not exactly the same size, but it's pretty darn close. I'm going to be using the edges of the picture plane basically to plan out where the shape of the body of the cat is located. Did we have a question earlier about watercolor and muddy watercolors?
Yeah, Buddy had mentioned that I think, if you don't come out, you can just say you were painting a picture of mud.
Oh, okay.
Because, if you move too fast from place to place and come back when it's still a little bit too wet to layer, sometimes your colors can get a little bit muddy. So maybe we'll learn a little bit about keeping our marks fresh and clean here.
Yeah.
With Matt's example.
Yeah, and I have this palette camera set up here, so I don't have to switch back and forth between the different camera angles. We can have both of them up at the same time. I know it's a little bit smaller, but to fit everything on the screen, that's what I had to do. And you got the bonus shot of me falling. All right, so we're about ready to get started. I'm going to sketch things out really quickly and loosely. I'm going to go as fast as I possibly can while still trying to be accurate. And then we'll start with the watercolor applications.
Mary Elizabeth wonders if you'll be using your handy dandy hair dryer tonight.
I have the hair dryer right to my left. I don't know if I'll have to use it or not. We'll see, but I have it handy. If I do,
Right,
I will.
he reserves the right.
I have it there if I need it. All right, I think we're ready for the timer, and then we'll dive into this. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is figure out where the ears are located, and I'm just going to kind of draw a line. There's a diagonal between one ear and the other, and I'm going to let that second ear end about right there and the first ear right here. Then from here, I'm going to go ahead and start planning out the basic shapes that I see. I'm going to go ahead and get an indication of where the top of the head is located, and I'm going to kind of give an idea of how much space there is between the two ears. And like I said, I'm going really quick. I really need to get to the paint as quickly as possible. And, you know, this is a live show, 45 minutes. So that's why I'm going so quickly. If I was doing this as a finished painting, of course, I would be going a lot slower and taking my time. So if you want to finish yours as a complete painting, please don't go this fast. You don't have to go this fast at all.
That's true. You guys can develop the same composition a little further. And in fact, I worked on one of my drawings from last season a little bit after the show, a few days later. So sometimes I like to work on mine beyond the limits here on Gettin Sketchy.
And speaking of shows, we have, we've got 2 more drawing episodes.
Including
this one. And then we will be doing the review show. And then that will be a wrap for season 13. So we'll be back before too long.
Matt, there's been some comments on your big palette. Now, some folks probably remember that travel set you used to use all the time. Do you like having the bigger space, the large palette?
Of course.
Yeah. When you're mixing,
of course I do.
When you're working with watercolor and you modify the value by adding water, your puddle can get pretty big. So it is nice to have all that extra mixing space. If you're not working out in the field, you may as well take advantage of a large palette.
Okay, I am looking at the edge of my picture plane, and I'm trying to figure out where each section starts and ends. And I'm just kind of looking at where this little shape right here
triangle shape there.
Yeah. And where it should end in relation to the edge of the picture plane.
It's a nice pose that the cat's in. It's kind of a zigzag, like a reverse S pose going from the head down to the tail.
And
dynamic.
The back end comes out like this, or it comes down at an angle. A little bit straighter down. Back in. And I'm going to look at this little part right here that sticks out and see that this little part right over here on the other side kind of goes back in just underneath it. We draw a straight line across. We got a little white section that kind of bulges out a little bit. Comes down here.
Mary Elizabeth wonders, can you erase the pencil after you have painted it?
Well, before we paint, we're going to do a little bit of erasing, believe it or not.
Okay.
And
it's always a little bit of kind of like loose graphite that you can remove and lift off, maybe with a kneaded eraser before you start painting.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, that graphite will almost become like pigment in your mixture, in that solution. And that can contribute to that muddy look sometimes with watercolor. So it's a good idea to lift that excess pigment off.
And let's see. The cat is about 3 heads tall. 1, 2, 3. So we need to bring the bottom down a little bit. So to figure that out, what I did is I just measured that on my reference real quick. And then decided to use the same measurement for the length of the cat. So I just took my 2 fingers and put them up there. That means it's going to bring the composition a little bit further down on the picture plane because I actually made the head too big right from the start. So I'm just going to adjust the body a little bit for that.
I like how you've adjusted it before you erased those lines that you abandoned. You can see how much you're making a change.
Eyes are pretty far down on the head.
Edie asks, why not use watercolor pencils, please? I don't know if that is use watercolor pencils, please, or why not use watercolor pencils, please?
You mean to do the sketch?
Or maybe to do the sketch, because then the colors would mix together, I guess, with the traditional watercolor. But some of these cats' edges are white. And
yeah,
that's one thing to note.
Yeah, watercolor pencils are really designed to be like watercolor when they're activated.
And you did an orangutan. Did you use?
I did an orangutan.
The orangutan was watercolor pencil, so they can look really great. And the cat.
But even with the orangutan, I started out with a. Now this was a live series. This was a live series for members.
Right.
Even with the orangutan, I started out with a pencil drawing.
That's right, because some of it, too much of it, got lifted away. Didn't something like that happen?
Yeah. Yeah, I had to redraw some stuff. No big deal. All right, I feel like I want the cat to be skinnier and appear a little taller. All right. We'll go ahead and put a little bit of detail there in the eyes. And I really, really, really would like to spend more time on the drawing, but I just don't have that time. We're going to let our loose painting happen here.
Mary Elizabeth says, I'm having a hard time seeing the black parts of the cat with parts of the dark background. And Ginger also said something similar. Do you find it challenging, that it's challenging to draw off a reference that it's hard to tell where the curves are? Hope that makes sense. Well, and I can see down low, it's pretty low contrast, but that also makes it look realistic and less like a cartoon sometimes when parts get lost in the dark shadows. But Matt, you're not going to put this background in the way it is that right?
No, I'm going to have a little bit of a background, but that's just going to make some of the light areas stand out.
Okay.
And it's okay if your background gets lost in the edges of the subject in your painting. In fact, if I was doing this as a finished painting, that's probably what I would do.
You would want that softness to happen down
right
there in the shadows.
And I'm just right now just planning out the shapes of value and color that we see on the cat, the patterns. A little bit more information before we start painting, and I don't know how much time we've got, but okay, that's okay. Minutes. I feel like I need to have at least 30 minutes for the painting.
Okay. You want to make sure you're happy with your contours. You'll be fighting against them the whole time.
I wish I'd made the cat a little skinnier and longer. I'm gonna exaggerate this little section right here. Maybe. I'm feeling a little bit better about it now, but.
Right, Charles is inspired. He says he's thinking about maybe actually trying this one after the show. I hope you do.
Okay. I think you should try all of them.
And Arch is going to do this one in ballpoint. There you go. You know, Matt's working in watercolor, but you can work alongside of him in any media you'd like.
Now, I just finished a series for members where I drew a cat with ballpoint pen.
With the zebra pen?
With the zebra pen.
That was the Siamese I saw?
That was the Siamese cat, yeah.
Perfect subject for that.
I'm going to let this tail kind of come back up into the face of the viewer. All right, now I'm going to take the kneaded eraser and I'm going to lightly erase. First, I'm going to clean up this edge here because I made everything a little bit skinnier.
All right. Yeah.
I'm just going to do a quick cleanup there, although that's mostly going to be covered up by watercolor anyway. And now we're going to just lightly erase the entire thing. Using a kneaded eraser for this. You can also just dab the surface if you want. Pick up some of that graphite. But I put this on pretty heavy with a pretty heavy hand, so I can rub over it too. I'll do the same thing. All right, so in the white areas of the cat, especially along the back here, you can see that it's not really white. So what we're going to do is we're going to create kind of a cool gray in those areas, and that's going to contrast the warm grays that we're going to use for the black areas. At least that's the plan. So we're going to go ahead and start mixing up a little bit of color. I'm going to use my number 6 brush here to begin with. And I'm going to pull a little bit of black out, ivory black. And you know what? I'm going to need...
And that's your warm black?
No, this is just the black. We're going to warm it and cool it. So I'm just going to get the black here. And I'm going to need a little bit black in my tray here. Oh, that's white. Titanium white. There we go. Losing time doing this, actually.
What are you doing?
Put a little bit more black in.
Oh, okay.
And this is, it's not ivory black. It is lamp black. I'm sorry. I'm going to need a little bit of a stronger version later anyway. And I'm going to get a little bit of Winsor Blue green shade. That would be this color right here. Pull it down on this side of the palette. And I'm going to bring a little bit of that black over into it. And that's going to create a cooler gray. Now we're going to adjust the value of that by how much water we have in the mixture.
So if you're not familiar with watercolor, working with water, think of water as white. The more water you add, the lighter of a value that you get, because more of the white paper shows through. So if you have a watercolor set that came with white, you don't need to use it.
And I'm just going to start painting in some of these darker, well, they're still lighter areas, but we're going to use a cooler gray here. I'm going to kind of keep my brush strokes loose. And you can see I'm putting down some of the color and then lifting it up. That's just going to create a lighter version. So I can let it sit there for a minute and see if I like it or not. But I'm going to try to get some of the shadow in place.
So Matt's got his black paint out, but he's painting in the white areas right now. So this is a good way to start thinking about black when you're using watercolor. Think of it as gray. It's not really, it comes out of the tube as black, but it goes down as some sort of a gray. Is not the case when we're working with oil or acrylic or gouache or any of the other paints. So very unique to watercolor.
And you can see how important having the paper towel is handy. So I am definitely using this to lift up some of the color.
Paper towel acts like a kneaded eraser if you were working in graphite right now. Won't take it all away, but it will lighten.
Up here in the face. Again, I'm using this cool gray to describe the shadows in the white or light areas initially.
Well, she is a sweet looking little cat.
She does
and look, engaging us.
She does look sweeter than the cat in the photo.
We're part of the story here because she's looking at us. We don't always get that in artwork.
Another reason why I'm choosing to use a cooler gray is so it contrasts the warmer colors that we have in here. So the cooler gray has a little bit of blue, as you can see. And we're going to be putting in a lot of those wormy oranges. warmish oranges, really yellow ochre, and a little bit of burnt sienna. All right, let's go ahead and let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna put a little bit more shadow around the face here. Just a little bit.
Charles wonders if you could have wet the paper first and done this wet over wet or wet on wet.
Yeah, you can if you want to, but wet into wet is gonna create a little bit less control.
Some softness around the edges.
Yeah, there's gonna be some
strokes.
softness around the edges. And
Now,
things.
the background would be perfect for that.
Yep. We might do a little bit of that back there. A little bit more black in that. Go ahead and get some darker value in those lighter areas. Now, this is gonna look pretty dark right now, but once we get some of the other colors in place, it won't look quite as dark because we'll understand it because of the relative nature of value.
The way Matt often works in the live classes is finishing an area as he moves across the page. But this requires a whole different approach due to the time limit and the media combination, having to really skip around, let areas dry or partially dry, and then return to them.
All right, I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of burnt sienna here. I'll have my burnt sienna over here and my yellow ochre over here, and then I'm going to create a few different versions of that mixture. And we might pull just a little bit of Windsor orange over in here too. So give it a little bit more variety. I'm going to go ahead and hit a few of these areas where we've got these oranges happening here. A little bit more of the yellow ochre.
Cake or Shake reminds us that one of us did a watercolor ladybug and wonders if we remember that. Was that you, Matt? I think it was.
Oh yeah, ladybug? I did do a pen and it was line and wash though. So, but yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah, I think.
Just watch the video.
Yeah, that's an oldie for sure. It might behoove me to use a smaller brush here, but I'm gonna keep going with this larger brush as long as I can.
Mary Elizabeth is reminded of Vermeer's Girl with the Pearl Earring by this cat's sort of glance, the way she's kind of looking over her shoulder at us.
Got that look, huh?
I'm trying to remember. I feel like did Vermeer ever have a cat in any of his paintings? It's not very many. There's only like 19 or 21 Vermeers out there. There is an odd one, a street scene. I don't remember if there's a cat in there or not. Love Vermeer.
All right, let's bring a little bit more yellow ochre into things. A little bit more water in it.
Edie, I see your question about the paper cockling, and Matt is painting on a watercolor block. So his paper still looks pretty flat and smooth. It's cold pressed paper, and it's glued all the way around the edges. Watercolor blocks, kind of like a sketch pad, but that you can't flip through. It's bound on all four sides, already pre-stretched somewhat, with a little gap on one in the middle of one side that you can slide a tool in, like a palette knife or a butter knife, and work that paper, the top sheet, off of the block when you're finished. So And also, Matt's not working with large areas of wash right now, like a sky or something like that. So he's going to get probably a little bit less buckling or cockling than he would with a different type of a subject.
Yeah,
But he'll probably still get a little bit.
Yeah, there's still some buckling. You can't see it on camera, but it is buckling a little bit. And that's just, that's just the nature of watercolor. There's just not really a way to prevent that other than using 300-pound watercolor paper.
One of our guests in the chat, I can't remember who it is right now, I apologize, mentioned that they iron their watercolors when they're finished. And I've ironed artwork before also, just turned over and ironed on low heat on the back, and that can flatten it back out, make it nice and crispy.
Yep, you can certainly do that.
Could be a little too crispy if you turn the heat up too much, but that'll flatten it back out. And sometimes the watercolor paper is actually changed its dimension a little bit. It's not a true rectangle anymore because it's expanded in one direction or another, but you can get it flattish. That was Laura. Thank you, Laura. I learned to do that from a student of mine, in a high school student who would iron her artwork, and she would just wrinkle her paper up so bad while she worked on it vigorously, then turn it in, and it was like it was a brand new sheet of paper. What are you doing to this paper? She said, I just take it home and iron it.
We're going to come back to some of the orange and yellowish areas in a little bit. But for now, we're going to go ahead and start adding a little bit of pink to the nose and the ears. So I'm going to get a little bit of, what color is this? Windsor red. A little bit of that down. And if we lighten this up enough, this should be, lighten it up, I mean by adding water, should be about right. I'm going to let some bleeding occur up here in the ear. I've just put down some color, so we're going to let some of those colors run into each other a little bit. And, we're putting down a lot of the, all these applications are pretty light right now. Things are going to start to really come together when we start adding the blacks. So right now we're just concentrating on the light areas.
Working from light to dark. That is
Put a little bit of pink right underneath.
Pretty standard for watercolor. Working from light to dark. Building those layers.
The nose right here.
Cake or Shake wonders, I believe, what the difference is between a watercolor and line and wash. And the difference is just the addition of an ink pen. And sometimes the ink, you can use the ink to contribute to the overall value with some hatching or cross hatching. And sometimes with some folks think of a wash as, using ink thinned with water, or watercolor, but more monochromatic, like a black and white painting, all grayscale as a wash. But it can be use color and maybe just a limited palette as well. So it's still a watercolor painting, but it's mixed with another medium.
All right, let's go ahead and go into the eyes here while we're waiting for some of these other areas to dry a little bit. And that's one of the reasons why I'm bouncing around a lot, because I've got to let some areas dry.
You got a fair amount of burnt sienna in the nose. Is that what that is? That color?
Burnt sienna in the nose. No, that's Windsor red.
Okay, Windsor red.
All right, I'm going to grab a little bit of permanent sap green, and then I'm going to add just a touch of black to it. That's going to give us a nice darker olive green. And I'm going to be careful of the areas where I see highlight. Go ahead and add our initial application of color to the eyes. And I really want that to be a little bit deeper, a little bit darker. And I'm also going to add a little bit of burnt sienna to this color too. I know that seems strange. That's going to give us a little bit more of a natural looking color, I think. Like I said, we're going to leave a little bit of room for the highlight up here. we're going to have to come back to this area and paint the pupil. Right now that looks like it's black, but it's not. It's really a green. You have to paint all those dark areas around the pupil.
I'm
Leave some
always
highlights.
always impressed by the creativity of our audience. And Edie mentions that the orange on your palette right now looks like a goldfish. Sure does.
Oh yeah.
Matt's doing a painting of a cat and a goldfish all at the same time.
Give it an eye. All right, while the eyes are starting to dry up a little bit, now I'm gonna go ahead and grab a little bit of black, and we're gonna warm this up a little bit with yellow ochre. Really freaking out that my yellow ochre just got contaminated. That's okay.
Mud.
I'm not real worried about it. So we're going to have a warmer black now. Get a little bit more black out. While I've still got the skinny brush, I'm going to go ahead and go underneath the nostril here.
Those really big highlights in the eye right now. She looks like she's got
Yeah.
watery, crying anime eyes.
Yeah, she
Super big highlights.
certainly does. All right, where else do we need some more detail-oriented blacks? Just a few indications of some of the edges up here. We definitely need some more shadow on the face. I'm gonna grab just a little bit more of our bluish gray. Try to give a little bit more definition here.
Edie mentions that the eyes always bring it to life until they go in. It looks kind of unfinished. And just for personal satisfaction, when I paint portraits, I never put the and I'm talking about opaque paint like acrylic or oil. I always leave the highlight out of the eyes until the very last mark, just for fun, just for myself, to watch the person go from lifeless to what feels like living. So just for fun, just for myself, I make the highlight the last mark.
All right, we're going to come back and put a little bit more variety in the eyes here, just so that area is completely dry when we come back with the dark areas around it and the areas in the pupil, because I don't want any of these colors to bleed. When I go in here with the darks, which we'll go in just a minute.
You gotta be real careful around there.
All right, let's go ahead and put down some big areas of dark value.
All right.
So back to the palette, getting that warmer black. Just really more of a warmer gray. And let's find a good place to start. Let's start right here.
Gosh, Mike has a problem, Matt. He says, is there any way to repair multi-layered paper? And he's talking about pastel matte paper. If a spot on the top layer goes through to the second layer. And this is about a 2-inch by 1/2 inch wide spot. It's pretty thick paper.
On pastel matte paper?
Clairefontaine pastel matte.
Pastel matte paper is pretty thick. I'm not
So,
sure I understand what's happening
yeah.
there.
Does it have a different backing?
It does have like a cardboardy
So
kind of back.
somehow Mike has gone through the pastel mat to the backing. I guess
Well,
you might be, if you could, gosh, I don't know. I mean, if you could cut out that damaged area sharply and then remove the top layer from another sheet and cut it exactly the same dimensions, you might could piece it in without it being raised. And
what,
then if you're working with pretty heavy pastel, it may fill in
I'm trying to
any little
understand
gap.
what's happened.
I don't have any more information than that.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to figure out
I
why.
don't know in what way it was damaged. But you might could try that. Pretty much just cut out a piece and cut out a new puzzle piece to fit in its place. There are paintings there's a Rembrandt that has canvas sewed onto it right about like 4 or 5 inches from the frame where a piece of canvas was added, and there are stitches and you can see them if you look real hard. But if it's good enough for Rembrandt, then we can do some pretty physical repairs to our own as well. If it was a thinner paper, maybe you could just paste a piece right over the damaged area. But when it's a little bit beefier, a little heavier weight paper, that edge is going to be a problem.
So here again, I'm just looking at the shapes that I see, trying to copy those shapes. Still don't want to get too close to the eyes right now. Come back with a smaller brush for that area.
Mm-hmm. Lord Engine mentions that Diego Velasquez used to sew onto his paintings, larger paintings, so extra pieces. Sometimes we crop our pictures down, but sometimes you could use more space after you start. So you can always add a piece on. Diego Velasquez happens to be my favorite painter. I did not know that. So thank you, Lord Engine.
And I'm putting this paint on pretty heavy. Normally I would take a little bit more of a reserved approach, but we don't
Speaking
have a lot of
a
time.
more reserved approach, Mary Elizabeth wonders how long approximately painting like this would take if you didn't have a timer. If you could.
Oh, I would go way slower, and I would be really thinking about every little section that I'm working in.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm kind of generalizing things, and I just, in my mind, it feels like I'm going 90 miles an hour because I'm trying to get as much information down as possible.
Yeah, you could spend
in the time.
Maybe, I'm gonna say.
It's hard to say because
6 or 7 hours, maybe.
Yeah, you could really.
Like that.
You could spend a really long time on
Probably
this.
with gaps in between, so everything could dry up really well. So that stretches out the time even more. You could really work that texture where one color bleeds into another.
I mean, I'm sitting here holding several brushes in my hand at the same time. It's
ready to go.
How fast I'm going here. And I would be going a lot slower and taking my time and really focusing. All right, speaking of focusing, I'm going to focus a little bit on the eyes here. It looks like they've dried up pretty well. I'm just going to put a little bit of shadow in the ear up here. Because it looks like we have 10 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
And this one's going to go a little bit longer. I can tell you that right now.
Well, the timer says 10 minutes, but we've got more time than that in our program. I'm sure you folks won't mind sticking around a few more minutes if we need to.
I'm still going to try, but you know, it's just when you have multiple colors that you have to mix, and just, you know, 45 minutes is a whole lot of time.
One thing that makes watercolor the time stretch out is that you're painting over the same shapes or areas multiple times.
Yeah.
Not just mixing the color you want and directly painting that color like we would with acrylic or oil. So the picture's only 6 by 8, but if Matt hits most of the areas 3 times, it's like it's more like an 18 by 24.
All right, let's go into those eyes a little bit. So I'm gonna get a nice.
Okay, Matt. I know how Matt. Matt. I know how Mike damaged his paper. He believes a drop of water got on his paper, and without realizing it, he started working over it with polychromos and tore the top layer of the paper in that spot. So.
Okay.
Well, I hate that for you, Mike. Hope you find a way to repair it. And like I said, I would actually just cut that piece out, lay your artwork down on another piece of pastel matte paper, and try to, you know, with a really sharp, like mechanical pencil, trace the shape that you've cut out. Then cut that shape out just barely on the outside of just up against the outside edge of your pencil mark, and it should fit nice and tight. Then you can back it, you know, put another backing to hold that piece in, just in that area.
All right, so it's really dark all the way around the outside here.
Yeah, she's got to put her makeup on. This cat looks like she's got mascara on. Put her face on. And I feel confident saying she, Matt, because some of our guests taught me that almost all calico cats are females.
Oh, well, there you go.
I know, I didn't know that. I fancy myself a cat person, but I've never had a calico. In fact, I've only had solid cats until the last few years. I have a tuxedo cat now, and he is fantastic. So now we're a tuxedo cat family. We used to be a black cat family. Now we're a tuxedo cat.
Now, what makes it a tuxedo cat?
He's black, and he's got a white chest and white arms and legs. You know, like he's wearing a suit.
Oh, I got you.
Like he's going to a dinner party.
All right, trying to preserve the highlights in there, and also try not to get too thick with our line around the outside of the eye.
Just a little production feedback. Barb says she really is enjoying the 3-camera views. I'm glad you said that, because Matt moved these rectangles around for about 10 minutes before we went on.
Yeah, I did some moving around. All right, we got more that we can do to the face, but we got to get some of those dark areas in, and I've got 6 minutes left. And I want to put a little bit of a background in here. So let's go ahead and get back to the dark shapes here. And I would love to have more variety in the areas where we've got those oranges and things. We'll go as quickly and as efficiently as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with this painting looking fresh, too. What I mean by that is a little looser.
Yeah, distinct marks. You can count the brush strokes. Right. I like that.
Yeah.
Judy Fussell says, love how the cat is coming alive.
Oh, well, thank you, Judy.
And Jen wonders what size brush you're using. Jen,
this is a 6.
Yeah, it's a 6, but it may not be the same 6 you have. Depends on the brand. It's not a universal. universal designation. I just try to guesstimate how wide they are. Like, it looks like Matt's using a 1/8 of an inch brush. It's about an 1/8 of an inch wide, something like that. If you're into fractions and the standard measuring system.
If you're into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, if you're into that kind of stuff. Jan says the cat is now definitely past that infamous watercolor ugly stage. The way watercolors develop from light to dark, they do go through some nebulous stages, don't they? It's looking bold now.
Yeah, you kind of have to just, trust what you're doing there. Trust your process. Remember how dark that area looked?
Oh yeah, that went down early, and I thought Matt missed the black area, but now look how light it looks in comparison. Mike, I see your question, and Matt is using Winsor & Newton paints. That's right, Winsor Newton.
Yep.
Correct.
These are the professional watercolors, and have them in tubes. And then just put them in my palette here. All right. You see how dark we got down there in some of those blacks? Mm-hmm. We want to have that blackness up here too. So back in here in a few areas. I'll leave a little bit of that sparkle happening there. So a little bit of the white showing through here and there. Whoever was asking how long you could spend on this, each time you go back through with another pass, you see more details. Mm-hmm. And you see more bits of color that you can add. So, you can really... I have spent some time on some paintings and drawings before. Back in and make some of those pupils a little bit darker. I want the cat to look frightened. So, a little surprised.
Jan wonders if there's a gel pen or gouache plan for the whiskers.
I do have a gel pen handy. I really don't want to use it.
Are whiskers kind of
I'm probably, if we have time, I might scratch that out.
Yeah. Get physical.
We'll see. We only got 2 minutes left, but I'm not finished.
Mike wonders the difference between the Winsor Newton regular paints and then the professional paints. And I would say generally the difference in all brands, professional grade and economy or student grade paints, is the pigment to binder ratio. You get just a little bit more pigment in the professional grade. They cost more and they're going to probably last a little bit longer, and they're all going to be pigments. Sometimes you get synthetic pigments or dyes in other types of paints. Now, there are high-quality paints that don't use pigment, and sometimes in oil paint, they're designated with the word lake in the title. And then you're not using an actual pigment. You're using something that is similar to that color. A pigment, of course, doesn't change. It's not going to change color. It's pure. You can leave it out in the sun. It's not going to change color.
All right, we're going to bring a little bit more of that stronger color back in. This is burnt sienna. Just give it a little bit more contrast and leave open some of the lighter areas. We just got a little bit more variety. We can be a little bit looser in these areas that are away from the face. Make this color just a little bit stronger here and there. And I believe the Cotman watercolors are made by Winsor and Newton. Is that right? And they're considered their student line, but I will tell you the Cotman watercolors are absolutely fantastic.
I think Winsor Newton's student grade oil paint's really good too. The Winton, I think that is a really good quality student grade oil paint.
Yeah,
So
I
don't
agree
have,
with the Winton.
Yeah, I don't have. I have only good things to say about Winsor Newton's paints across the board.
All right. Let's put down just a little bit more black here in this tail at the bottom. And then we're going to put a little bit of a background back here. It's loose, fresh, especially down here at the bottom. Make the cat feel grounded. And just a little bit more black up here. Gotta keep bringing the eyes back out.
June likes Daniel Smith watercolors, and I've never used those. Used that.
I haven't either, but I've heard that they're very popular.
Okay.
A lot of people like them. So.
We'll give it a shot.
Let's make the white parts of the cat stand out a little bit more. So to do that, we're going to put a little bit of a background behind it. And I like what's happening here with the bleeding of the colors coming together. I'm going to leave that alone. We're going to grab a little bit more of our permanent sap green and get a lot of it. Bring it over here. And I'm actually going to pull a little olive green in there too. These colors are so similar. Can't really tell much of a difference. And burnt sienna. Love that color. Although it's looking a little brownish now, so let's get a little bit more burnt sienna in here. Love burnt sienna.
Aurelia mentions, but how can a student learn with lower quality paints? It's like learning with a false value. Then when you upgrade your supplies, there'll be a difference. That is true. I don't seem to, like I said, I think that some student grades are much, much better than others. But I have found what you're talking about to be completely true with gouache. Lower grade gouache paints are not like the professional grade. The difference seems greater than some of the other types of paint out there. So that can be true. Although I don't see as big of a difference. You can learn with Winton and then switch to professional grade oil paint. Not as big of a difference. But if you're mixing them, you're going to see that difference. Professional grade colors are going to really overpower the student grade colors when you try to create like a secondary color out of two primaries put together.
So you can see I'm just letting these colors kind of mix here as we establish the outside. This is, again, those greens that we put together.
That looks great up against the light edge of our cat.
It makes such a big difference.
Sure does. She's really defined
now. And then we'll do a little bit of that on the other side.
Bear in the Garden asked if Winsor Newton gouache is okay. Yes, that's what I like to use.
Winsor and Newton gouache is the best
It's
gouache.
the best. And the cheaper grades, you can squeeze them out and just start painting with them. The Winsor Newton is so heavy on the pigment and lighter on the binder, which is gum arabic, that you've got to use some water with them just to get them going. So you can really tell the difference. All right. Charles says he loves this painting. It has a lot of movement.
Well, that's because I was moving the whole time. But thank you, Charles. Yeah,
Now, Arch was wondering if there's somewhere he can share his ballpoint pen version that he did alongside your painting.
Yeah. There's the forum at the Virtual Instructor.
That's right. Head over to Virtual Instructor and you can post your
Completely
artwork
free.
there.
Completely free to do so. Want this area wet? I'm just going to add a little bit more green here. That bleed out. And we'll do a little bit of that right here too. Create a little bit of a diagonal the other way. And I don't know how long I went over, but
Oh, who's counting? Probably about 5 minutes.
we all are counting. That's the whole point. All right. Let's see. I really do want those areas to dry up a little bit so you can kind of see how they dry. And I really want them not to bleed down the page, which is what's happening there because I'm at an angle. But somebody had mentioned earlier about the whiskers. You can take an X-Acto blade or a blade like this. This one does not have really a super sharp tip, so I'm going to try not to knock my eye out.
If you tear a piece of that, I'm going to get so upset.
I know. Trying to break.
Nancy says, sweet. Laura says, beautiful.
Thank you, guys.
Terry says, looks great, Matt. Nice to see a watercolor painting here. I knew this would be appreciated.
All right, I'm not going to take it too much further because it is starting to tear.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's going to tear. Like, I would dig down into some 300-pound paper, but I would be scared to scrape that across this one.
All right,
especially while it may still be moist.
Yeah, it's still.
Or you might end up with the same problem.
It's definitely moist.
Yeah.
Definitely have some moistness going on there. Just going to clean up just a couple of the areas on the inside of the eye here. And this would definitely be an area that I worked on a little bit longer. The areas around the face and the eyes. A little bit of a lighter yellow up here too. There we go. All right, we'll call that one finished.
All right, looks great, Matt. I love it.
All right,
and it's not just because it's a cat. It's a really nice painting, nice expressive mark making in there.
Now that we've done the cat, I can tell you all how much I dislike cats. I'm actually allergic to cats. I don't dislike them that badly. I really wish that I could like hang out with cats and it would be cool, but my eyes get really watery. I start sneezing really bad, and I really can't stand it. But I'd love to have a cat, just can't live with them. So I don't really hate them, but I really wish they were more like dogs. Really, really do.
Well, I've got a cat that was raised with a dog and thinks he is one.
Oh, I'd probably like that cat.
Yeah, he's cool. You can call him by name outside and he'll run to you.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
The thing I have against cats is they are, so standoffish,
so aloof.
You have to really get on their good side for them to like you.
Yeah, they're not all the same, Yeah. Some they'll hide under a bed their whole life. And some, just like my cat, he needs to touch a person all the time. So he and I are in contact with one another about 10 hours out of every 24.
Yeah.
He's just different.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wish cats were cooler.
Well, now you've got a cat that can't make you sneeze.
That's right.
The best kind.
All right. Do we have any other comments? If not, any comments or questions?
Ryan Nebula had a cat that would play fetch. Wow. And Marta says, very good. And Mrs. Red's art class said, looks amazing. So thank you so much. Thank you, folks, for being here. I hope you followed along, or you're going to paint this cat next. Having watched Matt, you're inspired.
Well, I tell you what, This was the first painting that I've done for Gettin Sketchy with just watercolor and no line and wash to bail me out.
Yeah.
Because really with line and wash, you could paint just like a solid color and then draw over the top of it. It would look pretty
really cool and illustrative.
So this opens the door, I think, for future watercolor paintings for Gettin Sketchy.
I know that makes a lot of our audience happy because they've asked for it for some time.
Yep. Well, now you might just get it.
Be careful what you ask for.
Okay, let's switch over here, and I'm going to try to push all the right buttons. All right, people just don't know all the stuff that I'm doing over here. They don't know all of the jumping around, turning lights off.
Yeah, if you've ever seen one of those one-man bands from like the 40s, men who would march around with cymbals and drums dangling off their elbows, that's what it looks like here in the studio sometimes, a one-man band. And I mean, I'm here too, but I don't have any buttons to push, except Matt's.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed tonight's Gettin Sketchy. I enjoyed doing this painting for you. We're going to be continuing with our oil painting series that Ashley's leading us through. We're doing landscape. That's for members over at thevirtualinstructor.com. If you're not a member yet, remember you can join right now. You get a 7-day free trial, which gives you access to everything. So go check it out. I encourage you to do so. Those of you we're going to see in just a minute, we'll see you in just a minute. Now, a reminder, next week, next Wednesday, will be the last drawing episode of the season. We still have the season finale where we go through and look at all the artworks we created and do a quick critique of that. That show is very, very valuable. And a lot of times people think that you've got to watch and learn, and that's what we do on the critique show, but we're talking about the things that are good about what we did and the things that we should change or could change about what we did. And that's called critique. And that is a very important part of learning how to be a better artist. And it doesn't have to be your artwork that's critiqued. In fact, you learn a lot from looking at other people's artwork.
We all struggle with the same problems, compositional problems.
Yep.
There's only a small set that we're fighting against all the time. So problems in our work, you may recognize those as having been an issue in one of your own, and then you can apply that moving forward.
Absolutely. So, all right, 2 more episodes. We'll see you guys right here next week. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. Good night, everybody.